Hi everyone, so today I'm at Classic Car Auctions by Iconic Auctions at the Warwickshire Event Centre. Probably the last auction that I'll go to this season before the winter properly sets in. Full calendar early next year. But in the meantime, watch out for some of my other videos on some of my cars. For example, there'll be quite a few videos coming on my Noble M12 GTO 3R, my Jaguar XJ Super V8 X350 for example. But today we're looking around some of the cars here, seeing there might be some things to buy. There's all kinds of cars, from modern JDM cars, vintage, fast modern Fords, Jaguar E-Types, Triumphs, all the usual suspects. Looks like a good day. Join me now to have a look around some of the cars. Perhaps the first thing I need to say is actually the light in here is absolutely terrible. It may not be apparent straight away, but it's really dim. The lights are very high up. It's going to make my videos unfortunately not great quality. I won't be able to put on this the image stabilization, and I suspect some dark interiors I just won't be able to film. So apologies in advance if some of the video is not great, but yeah, the light in here is really, really poor, I'm afraid. This is actually Classic Car Auctions, which is a sister company of Iconic Auctions, which I hadn't realised at the time. Iconic do more of the concours type cars, whereas this is perhaps the more affordable classic, let's say. You can see they've got lots of different cars here, often put into groups. You've got all the Rolls Royces and Bentleys over there, the Mercedes, some more modern Audis, etc. This is where the auction takes place, obviously. Jaguar E-Types. And then in the background there's more kind of vintage cars, some American stuff, some JDM cars as well. So great load of stuff here, and I'll have a look around in more detail now. So I'm going to start with this Chevrolet Corvette, C3 Corvette Stingray. I'm not a huge fan of American cars, but this is one I really make an exception for. Looks absolutely stunning in this Ontario orange. It's also a T-top Targa. Just looks absolutely magnificent. This has been upgraded actually to a 454 cubic inch, so 7.4 litre engine, big block engine. 365 horsepower and 455 pound-foot, so this must shift fairly well. Love the interior as well. The colour of that leather goes so well with the paintwork. What a cabin. These dials, etc., really low here. This was imported in 2015 and only 2 owners. This looks brilliant. It guided at 20 to 25 grand.
20,500. Roll down. 20,500. 11268.
So on to another car that I really like here. This is an Aston Martin DB7. Obviously this is a Vantage, 2001. With the V12, obviously these started life with just the inline 6 supercharged 6-cylinder engine. This actually wore the AML1 number plates. It must have been a press car. This looks excellent condition. Importantly, also manual gearbox. It's got sports exhaust. £80,000 worth of maintenance apparently. This Bordeaux leather interior, which is absolutely lovely. Yeah, this is really quite special. So although it said £80,000 worth of maintenance, I couldn't see that much in the file, so slightly confused about that. I'm just looking under here because these do have a floor pan issue which rusts away, and yeah, this is really wet. Very wet. Yeah, I can't see anything. I'm not going to investigate fully. That's enough to put me off. I would love this. I kind of had my eye on it. It's guided at 20 to 25,000. We'll see if it makes that. Seems a lot of money, but the V12 manual is a lovely option. So another one that I had my eye on, this 1976 Daimler 66 Coupe. So it's a Series 2. Fairly rare as a coupe. Look at this roof, lovely. It's in squadron blue, with a beautiful kind of light leather interior. Looks lovely. It was restored between 1991 and 2009, amazingly. And one of the reasons attracted me to this is the 5.3 litre V12, obviously famous Jaguar engine, 285 horsepower, but it has a 4-speed manual box from an SJS, and that's what really appealed to me. There's not a huge amount of paperwork with it though, despite that work that's been done. I think this will probably go for quite a lot of money. They're fashionable now to get these manual conversions, particularly with the likes of Harry Metcalf having a similar type of car with a manual conversion. You know, I expected this to be pristine. It's not. There's quite a lot of not brilliant paintwork, and also this, as you can see, bubbling paintwork, some rust coming through. So it's not quite as good as I expected. It's guided at 16 to 20,000 pounds. Yeah, it's not great here either. Probably doesn't come out in the light. But I expect it'll still fetch that. They're quite fashionable, these types of cars now. Here is that famous 5.3 V8. Always looks one of the most complicated engine bays, I always think. Still an engine I haven't owned and hope to own someday.
17,000.
So here is that Daimler 66.
17,000. Bit of thinking time for you. 17,000. Telephone
Quite a slow moving auction, I have to say.
We're all down the line of it. 17,000.
Looks like it'll make reserve
17,000. Quite sure. Thank you anyway. Then at 17,000. Fair one at 17.
So onto this Jaguar 2004 Jaguar XKR. This is carbon edition, so I think only 100 of these made, 50 in convertible like this one and 50 coupes. So being the R, this is obviously the 4.2 supercharged V8. I have that engine in another car, mated to the same ZF 6-speed box. Great combination, super smooth, loads of torque, about 400 pound-foot, 400 horsepower. This looks lovely. Paintwork's not amazing, some swirls. It's the trouble with having black paintwork, it really does show them, especially under this kind of lighting. 20-inch BBS wheels are standard with this carbon edition car, and obviously carbon fascia, inlay, etc. as you can see in here. A very, very black car. Might not appeal to everyone, I guess. Great history, 13 stamps in the book, 70,000 miles, guided at 12 to 15,000. So this is an awesome looking car, really striking. 1993 Mark IV Toyota Supra with absolute body kit. Yeah, certainly divisive in the taste department, I guess. It's got a custom interior as well. So this of course runs the famous 2JZ, 2JZ, 3-litre twin turbo engine. This is one that's running about 400 bhp. Unfortunately the 4-speed auto box here. Yeah, there wasn't that many manuals made. Owned since 2010, guided at 20 to 25,000 pounds. So now for something completely different. Cortina Mark V, so this is the gear 2-litre, so fairly rare actually, the 2 litres, and this is just brown. Brown everywhere, brown velour, I love it. I think this could actually do quite well. Owned since 2004, only 65,000 miles, but look at that. It's just brownness. So no reserve. I reckon this will still make some decent money, we'll see. So there's quite a few vintage cars here. Lovely Morris Minors here, actually. A couple of really nice condition ones. This split screen caught my eye. So this is a 1959 1000 Mark II. Been restored, Empire Green. These are only 800cc and 30 bhp. Got a limited history. Getting cheap now. This is guide, no reserve. And then this 1938 Morris van, so General Post Office, been fully restored. Beautiful looking thing, I love it. Guided at 12 to 16,000 pounds. And this is a Morris 8 van, so 1947 this one. Limited history, been off the road for 10 years. No reserve. So these Beaufort are Ford-based kits. I've never particularly liked the look of them. But moving on to this 1936 Talbot 10 Sports Tourer, fully rebuilt in 2004, 10 whole horsepower. It's believed to be one of only 10 remaining. Looks awesome. Had a full engine rebuild, repainted, and amazingly driven here from West Island. So huge credit to the owner for that. I bet that was quite an experience. Guided at 15 to 20,000 pounds. Of course, the accelerator control, I think, is out on the steering wheel here. So yeah, cool old thing. And then continuing down this vintage aisle, this is 1937 MGVA. Interested to know, I don't imagine this was an original colour, but someone can help me out there. I'd be surprised if it was. So it's a 1.5 litre Tourer, 54 horsepower, 4-speed synchronous box, full restoration in 2012, including engine and gearbox rebuild, guided at 20 to 25,000. Moving on to this 1923 Sunbeam 1640. This is a 4-seat Tourer. Look at this with a kind of individual separate windscreen shield for the rear passengers. I love this thing, it's just absolutely brilliant. Apparently one of 8 left. It has a 3-litre 4-cylinder engine with 16 horsepower. And it's got history dating back to 1952. Had loads of stuff done, new hood, etc. Looks great in this British racing green. And I don't think I've ever seen this before, with temperature gauge at the front here on the radiator, presumably, which is, I don't think I've seen. Looks wonderful. Ought to have one of these, and that horn and the accelerator on the steering wheel, some different controls back in these days. What a car, guided at 25 to 30,000 pounds. So, onto some more modern stuff now. 1988 Fiesta XR2. This is a Mark II Fiesta, obviously 96 horsepower from the engine here. It's got the pepper pot alloys. Looks great, really nice condition, good history, 72,000 miles. Looks good inside. Looks like a very steep guide price to me though, 15 to 20,000 pounds. I know these fetch a lot, but we'll see on that one. And another white modern performance Ford, so 1985, or semi-modern I guess, 1985 Ford Escort RS Turbo, obviously Series 1. This has had a full bare metal restoration, loads of work, gearbox rebuild. It's on 111,000 miles, looks lovely condition. Yeah, very nice. I've never been a huge fan of them, just don't appeal to me for some reason. Just a taste thing. Yeah, it looks lovely inside as well. So these obviously had the 1.6 CVH turbo engine. Famous engine giving 130 horsepower. Looks lovely under here as well. So moving on to a 1973 Ford Escort Mexico. Apparently this is a show winner. Been owned since year 2000 and restored both in 2002 and 2009. It's not perfect. You know, some of the metalwork and paintwork isn't great. Some rust coming through in places. It's running a Kent Crossflow engine. Apparently only 35,000 miles. I think that's just dirt, actually. This is guided at 30 to 40,000 pounds. I mean, I know these fetch a lot, but this doesn't seem a brilliant example. It's very nice, don't get me wrong, looks lovely in here as well, but yeah, we'll see. So this is quite a rare car. I can't remember the last time I've seen one of these. 1984 Mark I Astra GTE. See a lot more of the Mark IIs, at least I do. This is guided at 20 to 28,000 pounds. These ran a 1.8 4-cylinder engine, so not the red top that the Mark II had. So this only ran 115 bhp. So onto a 1964 Triumph TR4. Got the bonnet up here, so we can have a look at the 2.1 4-cylinder. I think this was twin carbs. Made it to a 4-speed box. Looks really nice in this British racing green. It's got some history. Unfortunately, this car dropped its coolant on the way. Look at the interior, that is lovely. So that will, I think, affect its what it fetches here, but it's guided at 18 to 22,000 pounds. Looks pretty nice. That's a good example. Chrome works beautiful. Seems like reasonably good value, this. Yeah, really nice condition.
especially the interior. And so next to a Triumph TR6. This is 1974. This isn't in quite such good condition. It's got lots of history, but just not quite so good. You can see under the bonnet, etc. It's not quite as good, and the chrome work here is not as good. It's not terrible, but it's also not perfect. You can see some rust coming through there. This is guided at 18 to 22,000 pounds. It's nice, but I struggle to see it making that when there are much better examples around. So onto this Series 2 Land Rover 1968. Yeah, this is in average condition. You can see the bulkhead here has some rust coming through. Looks okay underneath. Interior is pretty nice. Obviously had some new seats, etc. Yeah, I mean it's not brilliant condition on the outside, and that's a Defender door by the looks of it. So you can see Defender door handle. I presume the whole door card is also Defender. So it's obviously not original. Doesn't actually affect the price of these too much though, to be honest. Rear cross member, you can see quite a lot of rust coming through, so that'll probably need replacing. Rear third or something, or just the cross member. So yeah, it's not great. It's no reserve, but I think the estimate is 8 to 10,000. No way it'll make that, I don't think. You can get a really nice example for 10. It's running a 200 TDI engine, so in some people's eyes much more desirable. Depends if you're a purist or not. So this is a really rare car. Look at this. What a design. Bristol 401. This is 1951. Really easily recognisable, these. So Bristol, very unusual car manufacturer. I guess they were aerospace engineering or aeroplane making company, which moved into kind of high-end, low production cars. Known for their kind of excellent over engineering, I suppose you'd call it. This ran a BMW engine actually. Look at this door button, for example. Looks lovely in here. Look at that dash. Yeah, it's in kind of average condition, I guess. It's been from 35 years of ownership, but needs some recommissioning. Guided at 15 to 18,000. So a slightly unusual looking GT500 Mustang Capri here. Interesting car. So this is a 1984 Sierra XR4i, and this looks a really nice example in the pepper pot alloys. Runs the 2.8 Cologne V6, fully restored. Yeah, and a boot full of spares, etc., which is always a good sign of enthusiast ownership, I think. So yeah, although it's been fully restored, it's not really run much for 5 years, so we'll need some recommissioning. It's really nice inside as well. I haven't seen such a nice example for quite a long time. Obviously, these don't fetch the money of the Cosworths and things, but this is guided at 10 to 12,000. It looks like a reasonably good buy at that price, I think, for such a good example. So another Ford, a 1984 Ford Capri 2.8 injection special. It actually uses the same engine as the XR4i we just saw, 2.8 V6 Cologne, 160 horsepower. This looks like a fair example, I would describe it as. Fairly decent, and looks okay inside, but there is some kind of slightly suspect panel work on the sills, bottom of the doors, etc. Nothing bad, and just pointing it out, really, to be expected on these cars that aren't fully restored. 10 to 12,000 pounds. And onto a really interesting car here, Rover SD1. So this was originally a 3500 SD1, but it's got a 4.6 V8 from a Paris-Dakar race car in it, put in 20 years ago, so really interesting. It's got upgraded brakes and suspensions, an absolute ton of history. Yeah, really interesting car this. I like unusual cars. It's in good condition without being amazing, I guess. Huge, great stainless steel exhaust. You can see, you know, some imperfections here. Interesting badging, of course, as well. And that lovely blue interior as well. Yeah, bit more slight imperfections. Yeah, looks awesome. I like this. Yeah, manual gearbox as well. So Ferrari Mondial. So this is in 1986. This is the 3.2 QV Quattrovalvovi, I think. So these had various iterations of the Mondial, the 2.9, the 3.2 and the 3.4, so this is obviously a 3.2 V8, 270 horsepower, made it to a 5-speed manual. It's a 2+2, probably one of the least popular Ferraris ever made, I think it's fair to say. Not trying to be rude or anything, that's just the fact, but this is the Crema interior, and of course the gated manual. Looks a nice car. It's a Category D insurance loss. Had a lot spent on it recently. Paintwork's not amazing. 67,000 miles and guided for £20,000 to £25,000. Get yourself a cheap Ferrari, definitely. So another Mercedes. This is a 1987 300 SL, so R107 generation. So 300 SLs were 3 litre inline 6. About 190 horsepower. I think that's just dirt rather than paintwork damage. This comes from 10-year ownership and it's got a good record in that time. And it looks in fair condition. A little bit dodgy around the arches, but yeah, fairly good. 88,000 miles. Some staining there, as you can see, discoloration on the leather. It's guided at 22 to 26,000, which sounds a little bit steep to me, but we'll see. Bit of wear on the bolster as well. Nothing terrible. Yeah, looks quite nice in this gold. So this is a Mercedes S420. So this is a car I don't quite get in the sense that it's really not in good condition. Look at these headlights and the rust on the front arch there. I don't get in the sense that who's going to buy this. You can pick these up so cheaply now. You know, I guess look at the paintwork on the bonnet. I mean, it's micro blisting everywhere. I mean, how much would you pay for one of these? I don't know off the top of my head, probably a couple of thousand, maybe, for a fairly decent one. So why would you buy this one, which is cosmetically challenged at best, I would say. The wheels, I have to say, look excellent. It may be worth buying it just for the wheels. But it's really not in great condition. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful, that's just the honest truth. So this is 1995, and you know, the leather all creased up with bits kind of coming away on the interior. So he's had a 4.2 V8, 280 horsepower, 4-speed auto. Doors not quite shutting properly, I don't think. Yeah, anyway, I don't quite get who's going to buy this for anything like the 2,000 or 3,000 that they're suggesting is my point. So we'll see what it makes. So interesting car here, 2011 Evo 10 FQ 300. You can see quite a few modifications on it. This huge front splitter. So Evo 10, last of the Lancer Evos. Some people didn't like them because they ran a different engine compared with the majority of the last 9, and that's a different rear wing as well, I think, blacked out lights, etc. Had a load of work done on this. I'm slightly suspicious that it's running 350 horsepower, but it had 15 grand on an engine rebuild, which makes me slightly suspicious, so I wouldn't think it would need it at that power level. Anyway, so that's a IMPREZA Turbo Catalunya limited edition, and onto this super rare Evo 6 RS Sprint. So this is year 2000, only 12 of these ever made, and this is probably the only one with this veil side body kit. Yeah, as I say, super rare. These had upgraded turbos, they had gear ratios, different exhaust, steering, tons of different stuff over the standard Evo 6. I think they ran 330 bhp as standard. This one's running about 370. Only 38,000 kilometres. This is guided at 38 to 45,000 pounds. I wouldn't be surprised if that makes that money. Super rare. I love it just because it's rarity, and the Evo 6 is such a classic. Yeah, not my kind of style with the body kit, but there you go. So this is an interesting car, MGB Roadster 1973 with a supercharger. So that was supercharged obviously relatively recently, 40 bhp more apparently. Rebuilt in 2004, so new engine rebuild, gearbox rebuild, £30,000 spent. So here is that MGB. It's great value, to be honest, considering all that work and supercharging. So on to a Mark 1 Escort RS 2000, 1973. So we've seen quite a few Fords, but I wanted to point this one out because it has £130,000 spent from 2019 in a full rebuild. So it is pristine and absolutely perfect. Incredible. I mean, you never make your money back when you spend that much on restoration. This is guided at 70 to 80,000 pounds. It's immaculate. It's lovely. It's also crazy money for an Escort, in my opinion, to spend 130 grand on it. I love it, but yeah, wow. So another interesting Mercedes, 1990 300 SE. This is interesting because it's got this CARAT interior, so oxblood leather, and presumably these wheels as well. So this is obviously the straight 6 engine in here, 190 horsepower. It's category C write-off, and there doesn't appear to be any paperwork. Guided at 12 to 15,000. It's not in perfect condition, as you can see. I guess they're kind of relying on the rarity value. Yeah, I'm not sure it'll sell for that, but we'll see. So, E-Type Jag. This is a Series 3, V12 manual, as you can see, Roadster. Looks really nice. Look at this cockpit. Yeah, looks really nice condition. 70,000 miles, but only about 500 miles since 2018. It's got some limited history. Not a superb history, so that may limit its value perhaps. Look at this V12. Looks lovely under this engine bay, doesn't it? 5.3 V12, 272 horsepower, of course. Guided at 40 to 50,000. So another SL, 500 SL. 1983, so this is the 5 litre V8, of course, just under 240 horsepower, R107 generation. So this one I'm pointing out, it's not in fantastic condition, but it's kind of a relatively affordable classic, I suppose, 12 to 16,000 pounds. It needs money spent on it though, as you can see. arches aren't perfect either. So, Lotus Esprit, 1988. Striking colour, that's for sure. This is a 2.2 naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, so these only gave 172 horsepower. I guess it was reasonable for the time. Not perfect everywhere. Paintwork also not perfect. Just a well-loved, well-used car, nothing too bad. It's got a decent history, 72,000 miles. It's guided at 16 to 20,000 pounds. I've seen some properly ropey ones of these, and that doesn't seem too bad money, actually, I have to say. It's also got some slight damage on the interior. I don't know if you can see, but this top of the door card is coming away. Easier to see from that side. Again, I'm sure that can be rectified fairly easily. Bit of a black hole in here, I'm afraid, with the light. So what a car this is. Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud 3. Just looks amazing. In the colour as well. 1965 car. This is guided at 28 to 32,000 pounds. But wow, what a beautiful looking beast. 6.2 litre V8 in this. Lovely grey leather interior, picnic tables, etc., as you'd expect. Walnut dash. Yeah, used, but what a beautiful car. And now onto a 1970 Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow 1. So this actually replaced the Silver Cloud 3. Not in perfect condition. Lovely looking interior. Sorry, the light is terrible here, I'm afraid, so I can't show you too much inside, it just won't come out. Guided at 10 to 12,000 pounds. Interesting car here, so a highly modified 2004 Impreza WRX STI UK type. Quite a lot of kind of damaged parts on it. It's not been used, been off the road since 2022. Carbon mirrors are a bit damaged, as you can see. It's obviously got this lot of upgrades, including this interesting rear wing. But it's had about 7 grand spent on an engine build, running about 440 horsepower. I was kind of tempted by this, but it's a risky purchase. It's no reserve though. So what a car this is. Cadillac Bruffum Gold Edition. So I understand that only about 30 of these were made. Look at this kind of vinyl roof, amazing. And they were made specifically for VIPs. It's absolutely vast, this car. And the interior is something else. I mean, look at this. Imported to the country in 2015, to about 50,000 miles. Guided at 22 to 28,000, I'd love it. Another E-Type. Again, a Series 3 V12. And manual as well. Coupe, this one, obviously. This has had 3 keepers, owned for the last 10 years, had some previous restoration work and some paperwork. I wouldn't say these aren't concours type cars. It's nice, but lacks the paperwork. 30 to 35,000 it's guided at. And here is that Jag. So I don't know if I've ever actually seen one of these in the flesh. Honda S800, 1969. This is really dinky when you see it in the flesh. I think they weighed less than 800 kilograms. It's a cool little car, I love it. It's a Mark II Coupe, 70 horsepower, 800cc. Here is that Honda S800.
Thank you, at 11.2 then, standing right on the back end at 11.2, we're all done elsewhere. Last chance at 11,002. 11,002.
Audi RS6, so C5 generation, this is 2004. A car I might be interested in, kind of high risk because of the problems you get with these cars, with the gearbox and the DRC, the dynamic ride control. But this one looks excellent. I've looked at the history and it's top notch. Really, really well looked after. Owned for the last 10 years. Paintwork's got some swirls that could be polished out. Light leather interiors, rarer in Audis I think than some other cars, so it looks good for that, I think. It's got some wear, could tidy that up a bit. Yeah, possibly tempted. I think this is guided at 10 to 12,000, so it's a bit steep for me at that price. Famous Cosworth developed V8 twin turbo 4.2, 450-ish horsepower. So this is another interesting car, Mark II Cortina, 1970, but it's the Savage, so a custom 3-litre V6 in here. Owned for the last 20 years, it's an Essex V6, 4-speed manual, Capri diff. Really interesting car, I like it just for its novelty. And then of course the legendary ESCORT RS Cosworth. This is 1992. It's got some modifications to it, including a engine build in 2007 to over 400 horsepower. It's got a good history, but it's been off the road since 2021, 87,000 miles. I think they've had some problems with the electrics on this, as you can see with the boot up and things. Looks good, but it seems a bit steep to me at 38 to 43,000 pounds. Even it's probably going to need a little bit of recommissioning work. So here I am. I bought the Audi RS6, probably a stupid purchase. I'm just about to pick it up and hopefully drive home, so fingers crossed. Here we go. So I've just collected the RS6 from the auction. I'm on my way home now, and all good so far. Reasonably pleased with the purchase, but is this one of the highest risk cars that I've bought? Maybe. I always wanted one of these 20 years ago when they, pretty much when they came out. Nearly 450 horsepower just seemed crazy back then in a family estate. I prefer the estates. This is obviously a saloon. Twin turbo V8, what's not to like, basically. Obviously out of my reach 20 odd years ago, and they've got a lot cheaper, and I've thought about them since, but they're obviously very high risk. The dynamic ride control, the DRC, is a total nightmare on these cars. A lot of them have it replaced, like this one, now on KW coilovers. And of course the other major concern is the torque converter, which just doesn't seem to be able to handle the torque, particularly when they're modified, but there doesn't necessarily seem to be rhyme or reason as to which ones go. So that's really high risk. You're talking quite a lot of thousands of pounds. I don't know what it would cost now, but I imagine, £5 grand ballpark minimum to get the torque converter sorted if that it screws up, it slips, etc. So that's why I've never bought one. I've seen some at auction and they've been reasonably priced, fairly priced, but I still just haven't been satisfied that I'm prepared to take the risk, particularly at auction where you don't get to try the car out beforehand. You don't know what you're dealing with necessarily. So why did I get this? It's ridiculously high risk. Well, like I say, I've always liked them, and I buy anything I like at the right price, or what I feel is the right price. So hammer price was 6,500 for this, which I think is reasonable. And I think, this to me is probably an £11,000 car, given its history. It's on 100,000 miles. And so I figure because it doesn't have the DRC, that's one big headache gone. The other big headache, the torque converter, well, they could theoretically go at any time, I suppose. But I figure that at that price, I've got enough, leeway in the price, so to speak, to actually fix that and probably still get my money back pretty much. So I'm not unduly concerned. It's still a risk. I was surprised this went so cheap because I spent quite a long time going through the paperwork actually. And to me, this is the only reason that I bought this car, is because the paperwork was exceptional. The last 10 years it's been owned by a lady. I think she's done just under 12,000 miles in those 10 years, and she's spent about 25 grand in maintenance and upgrades. So she put it on the springs, got rid of the DRC,
She's done a couple of gearbox changes. It's been serviced every year, so I think it's had, you know, 17 oil changes. It's had, I think, 4 cam belt changes. It's had 4 gearbox changes, which, you know, could well prolong the life of the torque converter. And like I say, a huge amount spent, upgrades as well. I think it's been remapped. Well, I'm sure it's been remapped. Yeah, but I don't have the dyno printout for that. It's got Apple CarPlay upgrade, reversing camera, all sorts of other stuff. So, you know, I think it's a good buy. Why did no one else think this was a good buy at the auction? I suspect the same reasons as me, that people just think it's too high risk and perhaps didn't really trawl through the paperwork to see how well maintained this car really is. So first impressions are good. It shifts between the gears smoothly, perfectly. It's got a ton of power and mid-range torque. It's a lovely engine, I have to say. Yeah, gearbox, no concerns at all at the moment, like I say, but you just don't know if and when they may go. So yeah, pretty happy with the car actually. Time will tell, I suppose, but I'm going to enjoy the drive back. I'll do a proper kind of overview of this car in a video in the next few weeks or so, so watch out for that video, and thanks very much for watching.